In the heart of Glasgow, Scotland, lies an old cemetery, silent, ancient, and wrapped in mist. The southern necropolis, a place meant for the dead. But one night in 1954, it was filled with something else entirely. Fear, panic, and hundreds of children. It began as these things often do, with whispers, strange stories spread among schoolchildren, tales of a monstrous figure hiding among the graves, a vampire, but not a traditional one. This creature, they said, had iron teeth. It crept through the night, feeding on the blood of children. Some claimed it had already taken 2 boys. No bodies were found, but the fear was real. At first, adults laughed it off. Just silly rumors, kids telling stories. But then, the children gathered. On the night of September 23rd, as the sky darkened and rain began to fall, a crowd formed near the gates of the southern necropolis. Not just a few friends on a dare, but more than 100 children. Armed with sticks, knives, and makeshift weapons, they moved with a single purpose: hunt the vampire and destroy it. They pushed open the iron gates, stepped into the damp grass between headstones, and began their search. Eyes wide, breath shallow. Every gust of wind, every rustling leaf, sent a new wave of panic. They scoured the shadows. They peeked into crypts. They climbed over graves. And all the while, one question echoed through the darkness. Was it watching them? When police arrived, they expected troublemakers. Maybe a fight. Maybe a prank. What they found was far stranger. Dozens of children roaming the cemetery in the rain, soaked to the bone, refusing to leave. They were convinced the creature was still out there, hiding, waiting, hungry. And no matter how many officers showed up, the children stood their ground. The media caught wind of the story, and suddenly all of Glasgow was talking about it. Parents were horrified, schools were confused, and psychologists were baffled. How had such a wild idea taken hold of so many young minds? Why did they believe it so deeply? Authorities quickly looked for someone to blame. Their eyes turned toward horror comics, cheap, pulpy books filled with stories of monsters, murder, and madness. Titles like Tales from the Crypt and The Vault of Horror were being sold to kids in every corner shop. Was it any wonder, they asked, that children thought vampires lurked in cemeteries? It became a national controversy. Newspapers called for censorship. Teachers demanded change, and the British Parliament took action. Within a year, new laws were passed, banning violent comics for children. They thought the problem was solved, the monster slain, but weren't so sure. Older generations remembered folktales passed down for years, tales of witches and beasts in the woods beyond the city. One story in particular spoke of a woman with metal teeth who preyed on children who wandered too far after dark. Others pointed to a passage from the Bible's book of Daniel, describing a terrifying beast with iron teeth that devoured its victims. Maybe the children weren't making it up. Maybe they were remembering something older, something buried. Or maybe it was something even more terrifying: the power of belief. No vampire was ever found. No missing children were confirmed. But the fear was so real, it pulled hundreds of young minds into a shared nightmare. A hallucination born not from a single book or tale, but from a tangled web of fear, suggestion, and imagination. Even now, decades later, the story of the Gorbals vampire remains unsolved. Was it mass hysteria, a cautionary tale, or something darker? Something that slipped through the cracks between myth and memory? Because in the end, the scariest monsters are the ones we let into our minds,